Have you ever wondered if HR reads your Slack messages? What about why certain people get promoted? Or how to successfully play the corporate game? Or what about all those job applications that you throw out there and why you never get hired? Do you ever wonder who is the actual best person you need to know to get any job on the planet? If your mind's spinning right now and you're wondering, this is the episode for you. Clark Henson, former HR leader at JP Morgan and Capital One, shares all of the HR corporate secrets. So if you get value from this video, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe, and enjoy today's show. All right, Clark. So I'm fired up about this podcast. And I know a lot of people are probably very interested in some of the stuff we're probably going to get into. And so the first question I just have for you is, what's your story and what do you currently do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work in HR. So I'm an HR business partner for a mid-sized tech company. I spent the majority of my career in the banking world, and actually was at JP Morgan for the last 3 years on Wall Street. So I supported the investment bank over there. Was actually promoted at age 29. I was one of the youngest VPs over there at JPM. So I've been in my whole career of HR. So with that kind of my side gig, little hustle here is HR Shark, which is what I try to get back kind of the knowledge that I've learned throughout my career, just kind of give back to the people out there that I wish I would have had at a younger age. So
So you were promoted at JP Morgan at you said 29, like one of the highest positions, which is interesting. And so that immediately makes me go to the corporate game.
yeah,
The corporate game.
yeah,
And before I even ask you another question about that, what does the corporate game, can you define that for me as someone who works in HR?
yeah. It's knowing the inside conversations that are happening when that you're not in the room. So
Ah,
it's the decisions that are being made and kind of your performance that talks for you, and how do you show up in those meetings that you're not in.
okay. So it's essentially the people game, navigating the people game, stuff that's going behind the scenes
Yep.
that you are not aware of. Okay, so let's say with the corporate game, why don't we just let's focus on someone who just graduated college and they're like a young professional. So they're
Yeah.
coming right in and they're in the workforce. Um, what's the first step that they should do right away to kind of establish themselves in a good position
Yeah.
to climb the ladder, please the boss, etc.?
Visibility. I think visibility is the number one thing you can do. And when you're new and you're young and you're fresh, you can throw meetings on calendars and just get in front of the most senior level people within that team, and no one's going to bat an eye at it. It's when you've been there a while, when these meetings start to show up, that you don't have this opportunity. So when you're starting out, just get to learn the business like the back of your hand, understand the big picture goals. No matter what role you are, if you're entry level, even if you're an intern, if you can get in front of the most senior person on that team, and they know your name and your brand and what you stand for, the ceiling is like there is no ceiling for you. So
Mm. So I guess how did you play the game? And what was your
yeah.
steps kind of climbing up at such a young age?
Yeah, so in the HR world, like it gets a lot of flack, like, oh, HR just hires and fires people. But like it's kind of my insider was understanding the business, like understanding the P&L, understanding the financials. And so when I go into those rooms, like, oh, the HR guy's here. It's like I can speak the lingo. I understand how the game works in terms of the vision of the company and the key players are. And I've already built relationships with people that are walking in that room. And so when we sit down and whether it's a presentation or it's a key decision, they already know where my mind's at and they already understand where I'm coming from. And so it's like
Mm.
you gain those allies before you walk into that room. So the decision is like essentially already made before those key decisions are made in those meetings. So
Is there an example to help paint a picture
yeah.
of that?
Yeah. So I think the best example. So I mean, at JP Morgan, I mean, it is record breaking quarter after quarter at JP Morgan. It seems like incredible company. And walking into a room and just understanding the financials. So there's like this big headline out there that all of us HR people see, and being able to speak the lingo and understand to a 3-year-old what these financials mean, like record breaking transaction fees within the investment bank, lots of volatility in the markets, lots of fees and M&A business that's going on. Being able to break down that P&L to my fellow peers in HR just made me stand out versus like, yeah, anybody can go in there and do what they're asked to do with X, Y, and Z. But if you're able to explain it, a very complex business strategy to your HR colleagues is what kind of made me stand out.
Hmm. So yesterday at dinner, I was sitting with my friend, and he's in it's not an investment bank, but it's a finance company. It's a really good company, like hard job to get. And so we're sitting at dinner, and he's talking about like agency, and that was the one word he kept bringing up. He's like, "You need to have agency," and how he defined agency was, he's like, "There's a difference between in a meeting. There's someone who's an employee who's just going to do what they're told, and they're going to sit there. They're not going to problem solve. They're just going to say, 'Tell me what I need to do,' and I'm going to do
Yeah.
it." And he's trying to tell me that what's making him so different at the current moment is because he's just thinking so far ahead in the future about everything that could maximize and drive growth within the position or whatever his bosses wants. And he's like, I'm creating projects for myself.
Yeah.
I'm not being the one who's sitting there just waiting to be told. I'm actually doing and creating. And it was kind of fascinating because we were talking about that. Immediately, what popped up in my mind is that is every entrepreneur founder's dream, to have someone that operates like that, that starts thinking ahead and does not just do what they're told. But at the same time, then I thought about corporate America.
Yeah.
I'm like, have you ever read the book 48 Laws of Power?
I have not.
Okay, so a great book. Rule number one in 48 Laws of Power is never outshine the master. And so when my
Yeah.
friend comes in and he's a recent college grad right out, and he's trying to create projects and do all this stuff, immediately it makes me think the people above you who may not be working as hard but are more senior aren't going to like you, bro. And now you're putting yourself potentially on a chopping block
Hmm.
because you're coming out and you're doing stuff that puts them in a bad light, and now bosses are like, "Oh, this kid, he's
Yeah.
beating this person," and so now these people may rally around you and try to
Yeah.
get you canned. But what comes to mind? Like, what do you
Yeah,
think about
so
that?
I mean, I think the big thing is culture, right? I mean, especially with no matter where you are in your career, you want to go somewhere that empowers you to not only grow, but to like challenge the status quo and not just fall in line. Because I don't think anybody wants a job where they're just told what to do and they do it and then they go home. Like you want to be able to have the autonomy to make things better around you and put your fingerprint on it. And so the first thing when I think of that is like I mean, throughout my career, in my role in HR is I work with the most senior level leaders within the organization, and the best leaders that I see are like they don't have an ego. Like they're there. The problem and the mission is a team effort. This isn't like let me solve it and you do all the grunt work. It should absolutely be if someone raises their hand and say, hey, this is a diverse opinion on that. Like for me, in terms of building a strong culture for an organization, is I don't care what level you are. I don't care what team you're on. If you have a way to solve the problem better than the rest of us, then let's hear it. Let's dive into it. And so, I mean, yeah, there's some stuff out there. You're gonna hear horror stories and managers they want all the credit and stuff like that. But in terms of like the best leaders I've been around, is this is not about them. This is a team effort.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've spent time, especially like a Capital One and JP Morgan. Like those are ambitious people
Yeah,
that are probably working in that organization. And no matter what industry you're in or what company, there's definitely got to be some power plays,
yeah.
right? Behind the scenes. Are there power plays that maybe common ones that you've seen certain people do that have helped them advance or actually completely backfired and maybe screwed them over?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the sausage making, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, is done before you go into that room. And so if you're able to like kind of pitch it as like get in front of a senior level leader and kind of like, hey, like I'm learning the business. I want to learn about your career path. And you kind of like fluff their feather a little bit. And so
Yeah.
you kind of like, I mean, talk them up, say, hey, like where you're at in the role, I see what you're doing, and it's incredible. I want to follow in your steps, in terms of your career. Like, help me understand like how I can become better in my role. And then as you start to like have the conversations organically, you kind of weave in there like, hey, I was thinking about doing this type of project to help me gain more visibility. What are your thoughts? And so then they chime in, and you tweak your style to kind of their idea, and then all of a sudden it's like
Mhm.
they have their name behind it. And so it's like and then you're gonna go run with this project. And then the senior level executive is like, I'm the one that gave him that idea. And so it becomes like your project and your visibility throughout the company, but you have that senior leader's word behind you. And so it kind of becomes like they're gonna sponsor you and they're gonna speak up for you. And so when you walk in that meeting, you're presenting your project, whatever it may be, and that leader's in the room, they're gonna fight tooth and nail for you because it's coming across as like their idea, and I'm the one that told them to go after that. And so that's kind of how you like play the corporate game behind the scenes.
Wait, tell me more about that. That's super interesting. So let's just say it's day one, and I come into an organization, and I got this idea, and I'm going to make a huge impact on it, and I need to get approval from whoever to get my ideas influenced. What is the step by step that you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I don't it's not as black and white as, like, I gotta go send an email or get a ping, "Are you on board?" Like, you come at it in a way of when you're early on is you're just like a meet and greet. You get to know them, understand, like, kind of like an informal mentor. You're not gonna flat out ask, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" But then you start to weave into it, and you can say, "Hey, I've been here 30 days. These are kind of my initial thoughts, reactions, and, hey, this is something that kinda crossed my mind. What are your thoughts on it, reactions on it?" As something maybe as a good way to kinda build my brand at the firm. And so that's where you take the feedback, you take the guidance, and then you twist it into their kind of way of doing it, and then you just run with it, and you follow with them. Hey, maybe it's 3 months later. Hey, I want to get some feedback. We have some time, and a lot of senior level leaders don't have the time, and so you may have to just weave it into another project. Hey, can I get 5 minutes of your time to just go through, get feedback on this? And then they see it, they kind of give the blessing. They'll go through it really quick, and boom, there that you have that blessing from that senior level leader that's really, really hard to get just by that organic conversation starting off with like, "Hey, I wanna get to know more about the company."
Yeah, because you're so right. Because then at that point, because I'm just thinking in my own life, like if there's this girl that I'll give an example. She does content creation and she's been coming and like asking me for some tips. So I'll give her tips, but now I want to watch all her videos and I want to
Yeah,
see if
there you go.
they're growing and stuff. And like now it fires me up and I'm like, I'm more apt to give advice. I'm like, oh, you should do
Yeah,
this. Good job. Let's do this. Let me repost. And
yeah,
so it's almost coming in and saying, what do you want? And then incorporating that. And now they feel like they're a part of something.
yep, exactly. I feel like they have ownership over a little piece of your career journey and whatever you're working on, so they wanna see you succeed.
So something I'm also I saw something the other day about job searching. It was like this girl that went out and I think she applied for like 600 jobs. It was
Yeah,
just crazy thing. It went viral. 600 jobs
yeah.
and she didn't get a single interview. And so it had me thinking what are most people doing wrong within the job search that's preventing them from getting eyeballs?
Yeah, so right now, I mean, this market is one of the worst job markets. I mean, the numbers just closed out 4.4% unemployment rate right now. You're seeing the AI trend. So there's so many different reasons why the job market is so bad. I mean, kind of peel back the layer, and then I'll get to your question. But I mean, during COVID, I mean, there were so many jobs floating around. All the tech companies, the banks were overhiring, and now you're starting to see that pullback. Doing more with less is sexy on Wall Street right now. I mean, you see that like headline after headline, company after company, layoffs, and just doing more with less. And so that's impacting the job market. It's completely swung the other direction. And so in terms of there isn't a magic trick. I mean, you see a lot of career gurus out there that never worked a day in HR that say like, hey, optimize your LinkedIn profile, do this, and you'll get so many people in your IMs. Like it's not a reality. And working in HR right now, the best thing that you can do, and it might sound cliche, is leaning on your network. And so it's like
Mm.
reaching out to different people within your network. If it's like going in your community events. So if you live whatever city you live in, like if you're in finance, like find finance hangouts. Just go get out there and physically meet people. Nowadays, it's like a lot of remote jobs, and people are obsessive or finding a remote job. Like you have to physically go out there and meet people and network, and you're gonna uncover some jobs that don't even actually exist. But just because you're getting in front of these people, these key players, and connecting the dots, they're gonna think of you, and they're gonna be like, hey, Anthony, hey, Clark, like, what about this opportunity? Have you ever considered doing X? And you're like, I haven't, but it sounds like a great opportunity for me. So it's like you got to network your way into it. Going and blindly applying on LinkedIn, even if you have a referral within the company, like there's so little jobs out there right now, and a lot of those jobs that are being posted, they already know who they're going to hire, or they have a short list that they're going to hire, and based off their network.
Oh.
And so, I mean, I see it all the time as working in the industry. It's like I have some roles coming down the pipeline, and it's like my leaders, my hiring managers are like, I have 3 people in mind for this role already. And it's like we haven't even posted the thing yet. And so, yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's tough out there right now.
So the moral of the story is have some sort of in, but
Yeah.
who is the right person to go for the in then? Is it the senior leaders that are the people that have the most pull within
Yeah, I mean,
hiring?
directly the hiring manager, if you can get to the hiring manager or have someone within the hiring manager's network that they trust. So if you're saying like the president of a company and you every morning at 6 a.m. you're working out with and talks about his best friend who's the president of whatever company, like get it in there. And so when they're sitting on playing pool and drinking some whiskey on a Saturday night, it's like, hey, I got a really sharp guy that I work out with every morning at 6 a.m. He's looking for you got any roles? And it kind of like, you know what? We're trying to find some analyst role right now. What do you think? And so it's like boom, and then you have your intro there, and then you got to go and knock out the interview. But it's just like that connection is what you're looking for.
Okay. So it's connecting with pretty much hiring manager, trusted people, or
Yeah.
very, very high up senior in the company. Those are the people that will put the most pressure on to get you hired.
Yeah, absolutely. The recruiter and the HR person is a facilitator, right? So the recruiter's job is to get resumes and filter through the candidates that to find qualified people for the job. And so they're not going to make the decision. They're just feeding a pipeline of candidates to the hiring manager to make the decision on who they want to interview.
How do you find the hiring manager?
So the great question. It's not easy. I mean, you can in terms of kind of like the behind the scenes look is like LinkedIn. I mean, just using LinkedIn and understanding kind of the role and you can find some folks by looking at their activity. I mean, if you can see them commenting and liking things on there, you can see who's active on LinkedIn. You can say, hey, I'm interested in this role. Can you get me who's the hiring manager? Would love to learn more. And so you're gonna get a lot of rejections. It's like kind of like the rejection theory out there. It's like send 10 DM or send 100 DMs and try to get rejected 100 times. But like
Yeah.
you're gonna find something that's gonna hit and it's gonna lead you to a path of success. So you just got to get out there and fail.
So the girl though, 620
Yeah,
job applications. That's by whatever law you wanna call it, I don't know what the law is called. Uh, she should have found one before 600 something. So she had to be doing something wrong.
yeah. I mean,
Wha
yeah. I would love to go back and find the video, but to me, it's probably she's just blind. She's blindly just applying away and not tailoring the resume. Tailoring the resume is like good and bad. Like you should tailor your resume to the role. You shouldn't just copy and paste whatever you have for each role. But my guess is she just blindly seeing a job and applying into a dark hole. And yeah, right now in this market, that's not unheard of in terms of that volume.
Yeah, part of me feels like, it's like the thing, it's like sometimes victimhood mentality, like, "Oh, nothing can help me out, so I'm just gonna sulk in it and attract more of that." Part of me feels like, yeah, she literally just went on Indeed or whatever and probably applied to 640 positions without doing anything,
Yeah,
and of course, you're never gonna get hired doing that. Seriously, that's the worst way. I was talking to friends, I had a friend back in college, he's like, "Yo, I literally applied for 150 positions," and to me, it just seemed really stupid.
yeah,
Because you going out and spending your time doing that, the ROI on that is probably 1.
yeah,
But if you dedicated whatever X amount of time to your day to just, first of all, identifying a position that you wanted, and then going and networking within that community, your odds of getting an interview skyrocket
yeah.
100-fold, like 100-fold. Are there any other tips that, from an HR perspective that someone should do, to get that interview? Whether it's resume, whether it's networking,
Yeah.
applying?
Yeah, so I mean, if you don't necessarily have access to a hiring manager, the biggest thing is getting your resume seen by a physical human. That is the if you don't have a direct into like I said, power of influence. So the way you do that is the recruiter. You kind of the same thing you've done with kind of the hiring manager and kind of targeting their network is the same thing with the recruiter. And it's like it may be someone currently within the company. For example, if I had someone that I recently worked with at JPM or Cap One that I was like super impressed with, I was like, wow, they're a freaking rock star. I'm gonna reach out to that recruiter, whoever that role is, and be like, hey, I used to work with this person at my previous company. We have to absolutely give them at least an interview. And so that at least gets you that foot in the door. And so it's like finding someone that may not be the power in terms of making the decision, but someone that has a connection to and knows who the recruiter is and they trust. That's who you need to go
Hmm,
after, kind of number two.
okay. Do you have any advice? Because I'm sure you probably get some messages and DMs and stuff. if I want to go and network with someone at a company, do you have a formula or advice on the type of message to send?
Yeah, so short and sweet. I mean, we're all freaking busy, and so when we get these novels explaining why you're so great and where you come from, it's like let your resume do that talking for you. So, just short. I mean, short and sweet, and make it about like it's not like, "Hey, I need a job, I'm desperate." I mean, there's a lot of that there, "Hey, do you have a second for a coffee chat?" And you wanna talk and it's like, people don't have time for that, and so, like, the goal for a recruiter is to fill that role, and so the goal for you is to make them fill that role as soon as possible and get them somebody, and so when I'm looking at a job within my company that is open and someone reaching out to me, it's like, "Hey, I'm only gonna pass across a candidate that I feel strongly about because that's putting my
Mhm.
brand behind somebody." And so it's incredibly important to find who the recruiter is and get that ally behind you. But at the end of the day, like you just have to make sure that you know the value that you bring and can put behind them. So you got to find someone in your network that you've actually worked with, and you're not just cold DMing and somebody that's never worked at the company.
Okay. That's I when I was at my last job before I quit, I would just have some kids that would reach out. And my company gave you incentive. If you like
Yeah.
referred
Oh yeah,
someone,
referral bonus.
you would get a bonus. But I never met these kids before. Like I
Yeah.
seriously haven't. They would just
Yeah.
I maybe hop on a 10-minute call and then I would just refer them in some system and the system would always say like, "How do you know this kid? What's your relationship?"
Yeah.
And I would like lie, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, he's friends from
Did you get a bonus?
whatever." Well, I quit, so
Oh,
I'm not gonna get a bonus because I
yeah,
left,
got
but,
it.
also I have no idea what happened with any of these kids, but what I asked that is because I
Yeah.
don't think they would ever would they question me and ask, "How do you know this person?"
No, they're not gonna question I mean, but they're gonna, like, say, like, there's this happens all the time. You get a ton of referrals and, like, you still have to have a resume that actually fits the role. So just because Anthony referred me to his company, they're like, "Well, I'm looking at Clark's resume, and he's not qualified, and he's not got the things that we look for." So it's really both. It really needs to be both. They're not gonna
Oh,
question you, but if it's a small company, like in theory, how it's supposed to work is like, Anthony, you're only referring people that you worked with in the past and you think very strongly of. And then it just gets bogged down in the system when you just start referring more people. But at the end of the day, they still have to interview well. They still have to have a
mhm.
resume that lines up the job.
Okay, so let's move on now. Submitted resume in interview. Have you ever found, like what do you think the best candidates do during an interview that most people wouldn't ever realize?
So I think the first thing is matching the vibe and getting to know the person that you're talking to across. So if you so it's like the small talk before the interview actually starts is incredibly important because a hiring manager or maybe even a peer of the role, they're looking for someone that they can like vibe with and they like. People want to work with people that they like and feel like this is like someone I actually want to hang out with because you spend so much of your life at your job. And so the first thing you want to do is you want to find things in common. And it's essentially like stalking that person, social media, whatever you can find on the internet, find something in common with that person is going to go so far. So it's like, hey, how was your weekend? It was like, oh, I ran a 5K this weekend. They're like, oh, I'm a big runner. Like my whole family runs, and it's like, so you have that before you even get into the questions in the interview. You're already like, I can see myself working with that. I mean, so that's like one of those little things that playing the corporate game is so incredibly important. Before you walk in, you got to do your research and understand the person you're talking to.
How would you even go about doing research? Do you think it's just LinkedIn?
No, I mean, so all social medias. I mean, so you can even if it's just
Oh,
like I mean, hopefully, people are locking down their socials. I work in HR and I see socials all the time. They're like not private, but even if they are private, just like the display picture, like their banner on Facebook. Like I'm talking like very like any social like there's one of the senior level executives that I was interviewing for a job, Pinterest. They found one of our leaders' Pinterest boards, and the Pinterest board had like all of their like interior decorating, and so it like opened up like a treasure chest of items on this leader that they were having an interview with, and they told me kind of they chuckled after we hired them, just talking about like yeah, just before the call, like I understand what their interests were, they had all this stuff, and it was just
interesting.
like this like secret roadmap to like get them to like them. So yeah, anything you can
Wait,
find.
wait, wait. Let's stick on this for a second. So, it when I apply for a job or when someone applies for a job before the interview, is HR doing a deep seek on our social media accounts?
So I can't tell you I've never done this before. I mean, I'm not a recruiter. I'm a business partner, but I can tell you when there is roles out there, definitely more junior levels. Like there's gonna get a search. You're gonna get a search. It's gonna be someone out there, and so locking down your socials, I recommend. First of all, I've always been one of those conservative people. Like I tell my wife, it's like don't follow your friends on Instagram. In terms of your company at your job, do not follow them, and if they follow you, just let that thing sit in the pinning box. Because at the end of the day, like you were there to go to work and do your job and go home. Like they may be your friends because you work with them every day, like your work friend, but you have to keep your personal life separate. And it's not that it's going to be held against you, but it's just in terms of like you don't want anything negatively if you looked at you. For example, on a Friday afternoon, you stepped out of the office early and go play a round of golf. You don't want, oh, like Clark's not grinding away because he's on the golf course. Like that's absolutely not true at all. It's like little did that person know, like the week before they worked 60 hours, you know? And so it's just like keep your personal life separate because you want to be judged on what you're doing while you're at work, not when you're doing outside of so that's always been
Mm.
my philosophy. And it's the same thing with applying for jobs. It's like you don't want to be judged on that job because um what like your political views. I mean, some people are very outspoken online. You don't want your political views to prohibit you from getting a job and ultimately like getting you off of your career trajectory because you said something that then they didn't agree with on social media. So
So was there ever a time in your experience where a person didn't get a job because of something they did on social media?
So it's not for a job, but someone that currently has a job. Yes, I've seen that. Absolutely. There's been people on LinkedIn that I've seen posting about their like side gigs. So they'll be posting about like an accounting firm that they're running, that they're like an auditor doing this like auditing people's books and stuff in terms of like the side business books, and they're like promoting their side business and they're not even talking about their day job. And it's like, does this person still work the company? Like, yeah, they still work here. And so we
Mm.
didn't nothing like we didn't terminate that person. It was more of like, hey, like let's make sure that we're showing up positively on LinkedIn because like at the end of the day, like we are a brand that we're supporting. So it's like if you're showing our customers that you're focusing on this and not supporting our goals here, it's just not a good message.
Oh, is that you think that's at the core of it?
Yeah, I mean, when you're showing up, it's like I mean, like say Anthony, I'm working with you and you're in sales, and I'm at a company, and like you're pitching me on a product, but then on LinkedIn you're talking about your side business. It's like, okay, you're
Mm.
trying to sell me something, and I'm trying to commit my capital to what you're selling, but at the same time you're promoting your side business. Like there's conflict of interest here, and you'll see that in a lot of employee handbooks is like whatever you're doing, it should not be impacting the business goals and objectives when you're even if you're side hustle. So
Interesting. So I had a friend, I'll keep the details out because he probably wouldn't want me to disclose, but I had this friend who posted on a social media platform. And then the other day I got a call from him literally this week, 2 days ago. And he goes, "Hey, my company wants me to stop posting. And if I don't, they're going to fire me." I'm like, "Wow. Okay. Um, when do you have to make your decision?" He goes, "By tomorrow."
yeah,
I'm like, "Holy cow." And this is a big company and a very prestigious company,
yeah,
and they just wanted to shut him down for it. But it ended up happening, like, he can still post, but he just can't post a certain thing. But at the core, in my mind, I was trying to realize, like, why the heck would this company get so pressed with this guy's posting? It wasn't bad stuff, like, it seriously wasn't bad stuff at all. It's just entertaining, not bad. Is professional, like, seriously. But, like, why would this company get so pressed that he was doing this, and why did they just wanna shut him down? And what's your take on that?
yeah. So I mean, yeah, it depends on what company you're at. Absolutely. I mean, that's the first thing I did when I left JPM was go to my company and say, hey, this is what I like to do on the side. Like any issues here, and so the first thing you can do is call it out up front. Be transparent. Say, hey, like this is the why behind I do it. I mean, as long as it's good intentions, there shouldn't be a problem. But in terms of these bigger brands, like they're trying to protect themselves, and they don't know if you're having a good or bad day. You're going to get in front of a mic you're gonna put your phone down and start filming yourself, and how it's gonna impact their overall brand. So at the end of the day, it's like they're being conservative, and it's just like your little venture, whatever it is, even if it blows up to be something like millions of followers on social media, like their risk there, it's not worth impacting their brand. And so at the end of the day, no one employee at any company is worth that risk to them. And so they're gonna say, hey, let's take this stuff down and ultimately just silence them because they're trying to protect their brand.
I think companies miss out on a big opportunity for that. Meaning there's a lot of people now that do social media,
Yeah,
and a lot of
yeah,
stuff is 9 to 5 work. And
yeah,
it's like, oh, come with me for my 9 to 5. Well, guess what? These people have thousands and thousands of followers,
yeah,
and people love their stuff. And it's courting so much
yeah,
attention to these companies. Like, it's shining a mega light on these companies. And especially if you're in college and you're a young person trying to look for a job and you see this person that you look up to works for this company, well, boom. It's like
yeah,
availability heuristic. It's the first company that comes to mind. You're going to start doing research and you're going to go and apply. And I actually think these companies don't I think they're missing out on a huge golden opportunity because the narrative is
yeah,
kind of like silence, silence, silence. HR, let me book a meeting with you. HR, don't do this, don't do that. And then the people feel like, number one, now I don't like this company. I got to get out. And I'm not going to share anything
yeah,
about my job because I'm in fear of it. And it's actually a great
yeah.
marketing opportunity.
No, I think you're spot on. It's starting to turn. Like companies are starting to understand the value of these. It's like the storytelling superpower is you're starting to see. And there's a couple articles in the Wall Street Journal talking about all the companies that are. And it's funny because I have companies reach out to me, and just with my HR background and what I'm doing on social media. And they're like, we'd love for you to come be our brand advocate in the HR space. So getting in front of HR leaders and executives and talking about our tools. And so the jobs are being created, and it is absolutely an asset to a company. I totally agree with you. It's going to take time. It's the more conservative, big brand, prestige companies that are like kind of the old school
Yeah.
mindset. But these new school companies that are like thinking outside of the box, the innovative companies, is using the microphones of your employees to build your brand is absolutely the future, and it's starting to turn. I think it's only a matter of time until you see. I mean, I think like at SoFi, Rich BFF, Vivian, she's like the chief brand officer at SoFi now, and she started at like on Wall Street just doing her thing, and now she's literally has a C-suite role at SoFi, and because of
Wait,
her
who's
brand.
this girl?
Vivian,
Who's this girl?
Vivian, like she goes by Rich BFF. She's like a career, finance, content creator. She's got a massive following. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not like a me advocating or pitching her brand by any means, but she's awesome. She's got really great content. But what she's able to do now, she's on the C-suite on SoFi because of the brand that she's created on social media.
Just because of the following, she got
Yeah.
in the C-suite.
Yeah, she was on. Yeah, she's on a
Holy
bunch
cow.
of Forbes lists. Yeah, yeah, like the Forbes creator list. Yeah, yeah, she's
You,
awesome.
that definitely is I'm curious to see what the dynamic is with her in the sorry, the dynamic and relationship with her and some of her colleagues at SoFi,
Yeah,
because you get to the C-suite at a major bank. I mean, who is in that C-suite? Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford,
yep,
Duke. Like, you probably got like studs that have spent their entire lives working their way up, best degrees, best jobs. Now
yeah,
you have a content creator come in and go, boom,
yeah.
I'm in here now.
Thinking outside the
So
box. Yeah, yeah, that's the new
yeah.
marketing. I mean, yeah, I mean, you nailed it. What you just said. It's like telling the story, and yeah, it's crazy where social media is going, and it's just going to continue to grow bigger and bigger.
One thing I did a little bit of research on HR yesterday, uh, and I came across this guy on YouTube, and I think he's an employee defense lawyer
Oh
out
yeah,
of California.
you see
Do you know
those.
who I'm talking about?
There's a bunch of them out there. Yeah, these labor lawyers that just smash on HR. Yeah, yeah.
Smash
It's so
HR.
easy to the hate of HR is we all like kind of the HR content creators all kind of chuckle within ourselves. So they paint us as like really bad people. Cause I mean,
They do.
we're all chasing the same thing, right? Like we're all engagement and views, and people love the scapegoat of HR. And so I've been on a handful of podcasts, and it's like they always like the evil HR. Like tell me what HR is really like. and kind of
Yeah.
that stuff. But yeah, I mean, so yeah. What was he saying? So what were these videos that you're?
Well, so he was just, I mean, like HR was the enemy. And one
Yeah.
of the big lessons that he painted right here is HR does not have your best interest.
Mhm.
Because when you think about it, they have the company's best interest because at the
Yeah.
core, they have their best interest. And their best interest in HR is to keep their job. But if you start taking the side of maybe an employee who is suing the company, going to cost the company millions
Yeah.
and hundreds of millions of dollars, well, it's like, whose side are you on? So at the core, these
Mhm.
guys are saying HR never has your best interest. HR only cares about the company and its priorities and will do anything to keep the company safe.
Yeah.
And being in HR, what's your response to that?
Yeah, so I want to kind of back up until like these lawsuits and suing the company. So backing up to like preventing that stuff to happening. So HR, if HR at a company is what I call is defined as what good looks like at a company, is HR cares about the culture. I mentioned culture earlier. It's a cliche word, but if HR was like, yes, 100% we work for the company, like that pays our paycheck, like no doubt about it. All of us will say that. But if we work for a company and the culture is bad and we do not give the employee a voice, that company will never reach its goals. The most important asset at a company is its people. So if every
Mm,
time something hits the fan and an employee brings up a concern, if we're going and siding with the business, people are going to walk out the door. People are going to, you know what? I'm going to quiet quit. I'm going to watch the clock. It's 5 o'clock. I'm out of here. You're not going to get the best out of your employees. And so you have to give them a voice. And for example, like some of the best leaders that I've worked with in HR, like the employee engagement surveys that are sent out there and the feedback that they take that feedback, they read every single comment and they report out the results to the company. And if they can't, so say, for example, if like one of the feedback is, we all need a raise, like, let's be real here, not everyone can get a raise. As long as you say, hey, like, we hear you and we hear the concerns, and this is why we can or cannot do it. That is the transparency that an employee is looking for. And that's what builds a strong culture. So yeah, I mean, you
uh,
see all this stuff at the end, like, oh, my company's refusing to pay me for hours worked. Yeah, you're 100% going to get sued for that. If you're working, you should get paid. And there's some bad HR departments out there, just like there are bad finance people, bad people that work in operations. There's bad people across all companies, but it's giving the employees a voice, hearing them, sharing what their concerns are, and say, hey, we hear you. Here are all the comments and feedback that we got, and here are the ones that we're going to take action on, and then we're going to report
mm,
back to you a month from now, a quarter from now, whatever it is, and we're going to say, hey, this is what we've done. So it's like the say-do ratio. That is the most important part of building a culture in HR. Is one of my biggest roles, biggest
yeah.
jobs in my role is creating a culture of feedback and transparency.
Okay, so one thing that happened at my company um this year, and it was a couple months ago, is the hours at our company were it was 9 to 6. Everybody has always been told 9 to 6. Everybody has always worked 9 to 6. And then they called our typical vertical meeting on probably the first Monday in October. And they bring us in there. Everybody's not typical 15-minute meeting. Let's get back to work. The leaders break this down and they start going. People aren't really paying attention, zoning in and out. And then they go, tomorrow hours are going to be coming to the office at 8 a.m. and leaving at 6:30 p.m. And they phrase it in the way that we can't force you to do it, but it's highly encouraged that you come in at 8 a.m. and then leave at 6:30 because we need to make a push. And then
Yeah.
mid-meeting, so one of the guys in front of me, he turns around. I'm trying to like, dude, everybody's here right now. You can't make a big deal about this. So I'm just sitting like this, like, wow, this is gonna suck.
Yeah.
And this guy turns around, he's like, did I just hear that right? They're making us come in. He's like shouting in this entire meeting. People were livid. People are
Yeah.
pissed. My boss, our manager had a team meeting, and this one guy on my team goes, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm extremely angry about this. And they're like, oh, like to compensate you, we'll get Starbucks and
Yeah.
we'll have team breakfast.
Yep.
And they're like, are you fucking kidding me? You're just adding another 1.5 hours every single day with no increase in pay,
Yeah.
and you're doing this. But the reason I bring up this example is it's employee morale,
Yeah.
right? Because now employee morale, boom, down in the dumps,
Yeah.
how would you, as someone who has a lot of experience in HR and
Yeah.
experience with leadership, try to resurrect employees in that situation, make them feel heard, and
Yeah.
make sure they don't quiet quit?
Yeah, so let me kind of zoom out here in terms of kind of the strategy behind the why behind kind of the
Yeah.
implementing the productivity push here. And so if I'm advising my leader the situation, it's okay. Most likely, and most likely, there's something that there's a gap here. It's like productivity, company performance. There's a reason why they're trying to squeeze more out, right? And so it's like, okay, how do we do this? And maybe like that's one. Two, it's we're looking at EBITDA and we're trying to trim costs, and right. And so one way, I mean, Elon, what he did, the first thing he did with Twitter, right, is literally stripped it down to the bones. And you just walked in there. I think he brought like a sink in the front door, let that sink in. And he just strips it down to the bones. And so when you do something like that, you start to get voluntarily employees leave. And so that's kind of a play without having to give severance and laying people off, and or going through a performance route of 30, 60, 90 days of managing performance and putting them on a PIP. They say, hey, we're going to make you come back to the office 5 days. We're going to increase how many hours you're going to work. And so that's kind of the strategy behind what these companies are doing. And in the market that we're in, they know they can go to the market. Like the example you said earlier with the 640 applications, they know people are lining up outside to get in the door. And so they can push on their employee population to be more efficient, to work more hours, to whatever the bottom line is. And so that's why companies are doing that, because we're in that market right now and they can pull those levers. And so to answer your original question, in terms of the employee morale, it's kind of being transparent. The way I would do it and I would advise my leaders is like, hey, here's our numbers, our financials. We are behind. We are struggling. We're behind. These are our goals. And we need to achieve these goals. And this is how it rewards you. So for example, if we hit this number that we're trying to achieve, it's like the bonuses will be impacted by X amount. And I know you can't, most likely companies can't give you like, if you hit X, we're going to pay you Y. You can't go there, but it's being transparent with the why behind why we're doing these things. And so do you know why, like outside of, did they say specifically why they want you to work these new hours?
Yeah, we weren't hitting the targets that we
Okay.
had. For specifically, they're like, this is going to be one of the busiest months coming up,
Yeah.
October, November, before the holiday push, and we're behind target, and so we need to rally.
So did they tell you what's in it for you? Like why, like if you work these more hours, like,
Starbucks, that only happened twice.
okay, got it, got it. So
But there
like if,
was,
got it.
so it was Starbucks, occasional breakfast that
Yeah.
happened once, and work from home through the holidays. So
So,
that's what they
so
said.
no, like if we hit our target number, it was nothing like if we hit these targets, this is
No.
what's, no, got it. So yeah, that's where I, um, kind of the why behind it, in terms of, that's how I would advise. But in terms of your question of the morale, like you just have to be like transparent as possible with like that, none of that stuff. I when I hear people like pizza parties, like what can we do? Like the most impactful thing thing that costs no money is giving someone time. So like say, hey, you're gonna work Monday through Friday these extra hours, but Friday, you know what? We're gonna let you like all good. You can log off at 2 o'clock or whatever that may be. And so it's the gift of time is what I would
Oh.
advise versus like the Starbucks and pizza party stuff is the gift. Like that costs nothing to the company. They're going to pay you if you're a salary employee, right? They're going to pay you no matter what. But it's like letting you leave early, or maybe it's like some of the best things I've seen at companies too is like they do like a wellness Friday. So like once a month you get a half day. You get a half day. You get to log out early. That's to go to the gym, go for a run, work on yourself in terms of your wellness. Those go a long way with employees because they have something to look forward to. It's like, oh, we got a wellness Friday coming up in 2 weeks. And so instead of going at it with a like, we need you to do more, do more with less, it's kind of like, all right, we see we're working hard. This is the vision. This is why we're working hard. And this is how we're going to reward you if that's with like a half day on a later date.
I think one of the things, I read a lot of books, especially on strategy and leadership. And one of the main principles is like, you never want to make someone a spoiled brat,
Yeah.
meaning you never want to give them too much to the point where they expect something. Let's just say, same thing with government, right? Government's giving certain people money, and then the minute that maybe something would change and then the government takes back,
Yeah.
you are going to get people enraged because they expect it. They're entitled to that. So how do you balance that from an employee morale perspective with giving employees rewards and
Yeah.
stuff, but then not making spoiled brats?
Yeah. So you see this all the time when you see merit increases. So like every year they're like, "Oh, inflation's at 8% this year. Like, why is my raise only 2%?" And it's like, okay, well, when inflation is 2% or 3%, does that mean we're going to give you 2% or 3%? It's like, no, it depends on the company's performance. And so ultimately, there's a lot of numbers that go up and down. And so most companies, no matter what kind of year it's having, inflation's up, inflation's down, performance is up, performance is down, 3%, 3%, 3% is the pool of dollars that are allocated out. And so to answer your question, how do you give employees something? It's kind of like the trade-off and the why behind it. Like I said, this is going to be kind of my theme, is just like being as transparent, like radical candor as possible. Like it sucks right now. The company is struggling. It's not doing well. This is why it's not doing well. And we have to all rally together, and we're going to lose some of you. It's like being transparent. Like this is like, we're going to get through this. We may lose some of you, but at the end of the day, like we have to come together closer as a team. It may suck now. It may suck next year, but we're going to get through this as a team. We're going to be better at the end. And so when we get through those 3 or 5 years and performance picks back up for the company, like we're going to reward you and take care of you. That's something that like leaders will go out there on a limb and kind of say that and put their name and their word behind that. I think that's incredibly impactful. So it's like just calling out for what it is.
I saw something that you put some content out about promotions, and you're saying promotions are a way to retain employees instead of necessarily like
Yeah.
building them up. I mean, from someone who has spent a lot of time in HR, how would you define what is the purpose of a promotion?
Yeah. Yeah, so how would I define a promotion? So a lot of kind of my theory in promotion has always been like, you put someone in that role and they're performing, they're already in the role, and then you reward them, versus like they're doing their job that they're currently being assigned and they're doing it at a high level. Like what is changing to get them a promotion? Are they getting a bigger scope? Are they getting more responsibilities? What are they taking on more is what you define as a promotion. And the way I kind of evaluate promotions and the way I think about it is, if you look at your role within the company and your peers, are your peers at the same level as you, doing the exact same job, or are you doing a role that is someone that is higher than you? So someone that is working, operating at a higher level, say like, for example, to be as specific as possible, say that you support 6 managing directors within your role, but the level above you supports 10. And you're like, okay, I got to 10. Now I'm supporting 10. So now that would, in theory, in terms of your scope, you're supporting a bigger population. And so defining that is the promotion would put you on level and par with your peers. And so in HR, we look at peer equity. We look at across the organization, everyone that's doing your job, is your scope similar in nature? Like, are you doing that job that is similar in terms of like your day-to-day tasks, and how big is it compared to what you are? So to define a promotion is you are taking on a bigger role, a defined role, more tasks, and it could be higher level in terms of strategy. It could be higher level in terms of revenue, whatever the metric is. It just has to be able to say like it's bigger than where I'm currently at with my role.
But what would make your employer give you a promotion?
The value that you are bringing to the company, they cannot lose you. So when they see you're operating at a higher level and your peer equity is the same aligned, and you're going to your company and saying, like, you have to advocate for yourself. Very rarely you're going to see companies out there that are just going to tap you on the shoulder and be like, "Hey, Anthony, you're ready for a promotion." You have to be the advocate, and you do that through conversations with your manager. And kind of what we mentioned back earlier in the call is having those people in the room that are not your direct manager advocating for you and being on your side. And so when they have the promotion discussions, so we have these things called calibrations. Every year you get in a room, we talk about who's up for promotion. So for example, in that room, they're gonna say, "I'm your manager, Anthony." It's like, Anthony's been operating at a higher level. He's taking on more. He's doing X, Y, and Z at a higher level. And then the other person in the room is gonna be like, "Yeah, Anthony's great. He's this project that he's been running with. He's getting a ton of visibility. He's adding a ton of value to the company." That's gonna help you stand out versus those others in that room. So it's more than just you're doing your job well. Like, you're hired to do your job well. That's what everyone is striving to be. but it's like, what are you doing above and beyond? And you're being compared to your peers every single day. When you walk in that door, it's like, not in the sense of like, oh, they came in at 7 and I came in at 8. It's more like the value that you're bringing to the company and how you show up. And I say this all the time, it's not the what, it's the how you do your job is the important aspect of a promotion and how you get to the next level.
Meaning, when you say how,
So are
like, what do you mean
you
by that?
so when I'm giving you a task to say, "Hey, Anthony, I need to do X, Y, and Z," and you come back, give me X, Y, and Z, and you're like, "Now what?" It's like looking around the corner. It's like, "Hey, I did X, Y, and Z, and I anticipate the next employee, or sorry, the next client is going to need this." It's the anticipation of what's
Uh,
coming next. And so me as a manager, you're doing my job for me. You're giving me you're giving me the roadmap and the why behind it. And so I can just hands back. I know Anthony's taking care of it. He makes my life easier. He's not only doing his
yeah.
job at a high level, but he's also doing my job for me by anticipating what's coming next.
Would you say that's the easiest way to get promoted and advance, or to get your manager to like you, is simply just to make their job easier?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's definitely it's a variable. It's not the only. You also have like the self advocacy as well. You have to be able to not just your manager, but you have to make it known to your peers as well. It's like Anthony's operating at such a high level. He's at a higher level than me. He's like, and so people start seeking you out. Like, "Hey, Anthony, how did you do this? Where did you come up with that idea?" And so they start to see you as this like informal mentor, and they come to you, and then your manager starts to see that your peers managers start to see that. They're like, "Anthony's on our calls, they're seeking advice from him." So it's like you're that informal leader. And so you start to be that like kind of like that magnet of advice that people start to see.
But how do you advocate yourself? Uh, for example, like, I've always been someone. My mom drilled it in my head at a very early age. She's like, do not be a brown noser. Don't be the kid that goes out and is like very
Yeah.
egotistical and cocky. Like, do good work and be humble. And so I've always tried to go that way. I don't, and I'm probably not the best at advocating for myself. I've always been a believer, like, if you do good work and you just do good work and you do good business, people will see that and you'll be rewarded. But it kind of what you're breaking down right now, and it doesn't really sound like it. So how would somebody successfully advocate themselves if they don't want to be perceived as egotistical or a brown noser?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll answer that question in a second. So the first kind of thought comes to my head is closed mouths don't get fed. And so if your manager doesn't know that you're eager, like they're not going to reward you. They're not going to give you what you're looking for. So you have to look at it as the aspect of like putting it out there. And a lot of leaders will respect that and will give you the blueprint to how to get there. So like you can say, Anthony, you come to me and say, "Hey, Clark, I'm looking for promotion. How do I get there as your manager?" I'm going to lay it out and say, "Hey, X, Y, and Z, go and do it. And we can have a conversation in 6 months." You come back to me and you're like, "Hey, I did all these things." You're like, how do I tell you no? Like, I have to go get my boss on board and go get some other peers on board. But like, if I just told you that, so it's like their word is on the line. And so it's like you kind of like holding their feet to the fire in a will. And you have to get that out of your manager. And they may not have key metrics that they can give you, but it's like giving you a roadmap to give you some sort of a path to get on for that. But in terms of your question, in terms of the brown nosing, so let the results speak for themselves, right? I mean, if you like the metrics, so like at the end of the year, or even if it's mid-year, like most companies have self-assessments, right? If you can put pen to paper, and now with the AI tools out there, you can really dress it up really nicely and quantify all the value that you bring. If you make the value that you bring like undeniable on a self-assessment, like get that in front of your manager, or those other peers in the room, it's going to speak for itself. So you don't need to go out there. Yeah, you can say like, "Anthony, what are you most proud of this year?" And you have your elevator pitch, like, "Hey, I've done X, Y, and Z this year, and this is add value because of Y." That's really important. You need to have that, but let that self assessment during the mid year and year end reviews be your voice, because that they're going to have these calibration sessions in HR. We have them, and it's be like, these numbers are undeniable. So if you're doing your job at a
Mm.
high level, they cannot deny you, and you have their word on saying, "Here's the roadmap." And still, I've heard employees do all of these things, and at the end of the day, there still has to be a role for you to be promoted into. That's the thing, is like, you can do your job at a high level, but the higher up you get in a company, there has to be a role for you to move into. You can't, like, the role that you're sitting in now cannot be leveled up. You have to physically go to a different role. And so that's where you start to see, once you get more high level and senior in a company, is you have to have the job. And then that's a whole nother conversation that we can get into, but it's like networking within that current company in terms of seeing roles that are coming available that you can step into.
Okay, so it's almost like actually documenting stuff that you're doing backed by data.
Yep.
Like, because data is undeniable. So if you can bring data to the table,
Yep.
that kinda makes everybody's lives easier for you to go and get promoted.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, cool. Yeah, you have to be able the value tie it back to the company overall's mission, vision, and values. Like you have to be able to say,
Mm.
"Hey, this is why. So this is what I did and how I did it and why it impacts the bigger picture." And the best employees, like even in you start to keep pushing on it, raising it up. And like I said, like you mentioned at the top of the question is they wanna retain you, and they're gonna retain you, is so incredibly important, and in getting more leverage too, like, say you start to put out, feelers on other roles internally within the company. So I've seen this too, like, say another team is like, "Oh, we really like Anthony, he's doing a really great job, like, you wanna come over to our team?" And it's like, take the call. Take the call. Have the interview, talk to that other team, and they're like, "Hey, Anthony, you wanna come over?" And then you use that. You go back to your current team and say, "Hey,
Mm.
this hiring manager is looking at me for this role." They may have already told your hiring manager, "I really like it." But you know what? Like, what you have here in this team, I have so much confidence is like we're gonna reach our goals, and I feel like we have such a great thing built. I wanna stay here and keep continuing to build this out. Is there any way I could get this role that I'm in now at that same level? And then just
Uh,
pause and let them kind of noodle on it. And then like usually like the hiring managers will say like, let me think about it, come back to you. And then they go in that room that you're not in and they start to talk about like, you know what, let's do it. And then they come back to you and you get what you're looking for because you use that leverage internally within the company.
it's almost like, it's the art of seduction, making
Yeah.
yourself an object of desire because you're playing all these different
Yep.
things. That's really interesting. I agree. I think you should take that extra call and then paint it as, "This is what's going on right now. You either have me or you're gonna lose me." Um, something that I'm really, really curious about is, can HR read your Slack messages?
So to answer your question, yes. Anything that you type on a company device, so it gets a little gray in terms of like, say that you have a company phone and you're texting your friends, that gets a little gray. But in terms of like Slack like intercompany communications, 100% they can access it. Do they stare at it every day? No. The only reason why they're going to access that stuff is say that we Anthony, you're being accused of discrimination of another employee. And they're like, oh, well, in Slack, Anthony was saying these things to me. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to go pull Slack of the company and we're going to see what you were saying. So, yes, anything is on there. And that's what I tell people too is like, don't use your company device as like a personal device. Like, don't go on there. Like, I've seen some crazy stuff at other companies. Like, they like connected their Gmail to their like their work Gmail. And so they had like both their inboxes going on. So they're flipping back and forth between like their personal and their work email. And it's like, don't do that. Like separate
God.
church and state. Like you got to keep your personal life separate because like if they want to go find something, like it's company property, it's listed in the handbook, like they can go and find it.
Wait, so if they gave me a work phone and I on my work phone, I put my Gmail, my personal, and just in the Gmail app, because you can switch accounts,
Yeah.
they can access my
So no,
personal
so
Gmail?
that's where it gets a little gray. So like if it's a work phone, so if you're on a
Yeah.
work phone, and that's where it gets a little gray. I can't speak to this when it gets in the like labor lawyer in territory. But if it's a company issued laptop and you have your Gmail up and you like that device in that computer 100% searchable. When you get into like, so say you're on a work phone and you're texting your best friend, like having a personal conversation, that's where it gets a little blurry. But I have seen, and this is at some big firms that people have gotten really in lots of trouble is they were sharing confidential work information via text message. So you should be having confidential, like if you're sharing company financials in a text message to like even your boss on your phone, you should be sharing that through secure channels. There's different apps, there's different things within companies' domains that you can talk about those things. But if you're just sharing it through like a WhatsApp or a text message. Like that's where it gets really, really blurry, and companies have gotten in trouble. And so like I've seen like at the bank, there's like certain apps that you can only communicate on in terms of work stuff.
Really? Well, Clark, that even makes me think though, because if you're in HR or whatever, you have the power to look at some of those messages. What happens if the HR director is that nosy girl from high school that just wants to read this stuff? Like, th- can you just go in there and look at it, or do you have
Yeah,
to have some
so
sort of approval to be
that's
able to do
where
it?
it comes back to the kind of the ethics and the moral of the company and the bad HR department. If they're if I know about someone on my team that is just snooping through someone's Slack channels to get gossip, it's like you look at that person, you're like, really? Like, do you have anything better to do
Yeah.
with your time? That's where and that person can like that HR person can be held accountable. That HR person can be fired. If they're just going in there and like kind of holding it against you, then they should absolutely be held accountable and terminated if they're doing it for the wrong reasons. And so yeah, I mean I'm sure it absolutely does happen. But in HR, you're held to a higher standard than all the other employees in terms of your behavior. And that's like kind of the oath that you walk into HR is like, come on, like that's not what we're here
Yeah.
for.
In my job, our HR lady would always tell us new hires, like, anything you guys come to me with will be confidential unless you tell me that I can and go and find the solution for you. So part of me is like, oh, this girl seems really genuine and like, yeah, I could trust her with anything, right? But then I listened to Mr. Employment
Yeah.
divorce lawyer, and he's like, don't trust HR with anything because they don't have your best interest. So when HR says that it's confidential, what you share with them, is it actually confidential?
So so HR, I mean, so there's kind of a it's kind of it gets starts getting gray. So if you start talking about like personal health, you start like stuff that's protected by HIPAA, like health conditions, like they are obligated to protect that types of information if you disclose that to them. But if you're saying if you're kind of venting and saying different like, employee conversations that are going on, like their job at HR is to help solve the problem. They're here to help the culture. They're here to make you feel more secure in your role. And so they're going to take that information. They're going to go try to solve the problem for you, even if it's not the way that you would necessarily solve it. They may use that information in a way that you don't necessarily agree on. So the way I kind of look at it is when you go to an HR, like you want to go in there, like this is not a gossip situation. Like, why are you coming to me and why, like, how does it impact the business? Like, what is this going to solve? Like, for example, say that you're saying, you got an employee on the team that just really bringing down the team morale. They're just making everybody upset, and it's just not helping to solve our goals. So, like, how does that not solving your goals? Like, what is that not solving? Are they distracting
Mm.
people? Are they bringing people down? And like, what is it? And so it's like, what information are you coming to me with, and what do you want me to do with it? So, hey, for example, like her demeanor is killing the morale. People are like don't want to work with her, so they're literally just logging off early, and because they don't want to deal with this person anymore. It's like, okay, let's go address the situation. But then you're gonna start interviewing people, and so if you're okay with HR interviewing your peer, your manager, and all these other people to get a devil's advocate perspective, they're gonna get both sides of the story. So it's not just gonna be your side. So you got
Mm.
to come to it as like you're trying to help and you're trying to ultimately add value. You're not doing it as a gossip session, and kind of what you want HR to do with the information. That'll help guide us. But yeah, to answer your question, we are going to take whatever you tell us to try to help the situation and to try to help both sides, not just you. It's going to help the business as well.
Do you have any stories of where it just backfired on someone?
I've seen different definitely situations where an employee has come to me and just like I mean, I'll give you a really great example. That employee came and just kind of like probing questions, asking more, and they started to get defensive. And this is actually very early on in my career. And this guy stood up and just hit a walkie-talkie and spikes this walkie-talkie, and he's like, "Whose side are you on?" And it's like, in your job in HR, you just have to ask questions and try to understand what's going on. And so that person understood it as like I didn't believe them, and I was just searching for more information to protect the company. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm just trying to gather facts. And so how you conduct yourself absolutely would backfire on you. And kind of like we're in those rooms and those calibration sessions, and how you conduct yourself as an
Mm,
employee, and you want to climb the ladder um into a senior level executive position someday, but how you're conducting yourself and how you're going about matter is, so if you spin it as like a positive, here I'm here to help, I'm just calling out observations, and do it in a professional manner, like it's HR is here to help. But if it can backfire on you if you walk in those rooms, and you like how you conduct yourself can really, really impact kind of your perception and your brand.
well, that even makes me feel like that guy was guilty. You don't get
Yeah.
that defensive if you're not trying to stir the pot and do something.
Exactly. And so that's exactly what popped in my mind. Why are you so defensive? Why are you
Yeah.
acting like this? And it's not going to help you. It's not going to help.
So before we move on to kind of your story with money, and because I know you've been very successful with personal budgeting and finances, my friend this morning, I went on a long run. We ripped 15 miles, and then I
Nice.
mentioned that I was
Yeah.
I was interviewing you, and he's like, you have to ask Clark this question because I just came about it, and he was saying that he was on LinkedIn and he was looking at one of our head people of recruiting or something, and she was getting in a fight with someone in the comments on LinkedIn,
Oh,
about ATS
oh yeah.
and the applicant tracking system,
Yeah.
and I guess the argument was around this person was saying that my resume is getting immediately disqualified, there's not even getting human eyes on it, like, this is unfair XYZ. So, what does someone who's applying for a job need to know about ATS?
Yeah, so ATS, with AI being infused into it. So an ATS system is by design to help recruiters because they have large volumes of resumes. And so what a recruiter does with an ATS is they'll train it, they'll filter it on keywords, key specific experience, maybe even types of degrees, whatever it may be. They're going to train that ATS to help pull them in and kind of trim down that overall volume of resumes. Um, and so to get your eyes, it kind of goes back to ATS is not gonna get you a job. It's not gonna get your resume in front of the right people. It's literally just a system to help the recruiter. And so kind of what we originally said at the beginning is making sure like you have that connection to get your resume pulled out from the pile. So there really isn't any. There's different tools like when you embed your resume with keywords. Like there's some tools out there I talk about on my page. There's some really good tools that'll help you. Kind of you use the job description, the keywords in the job description. You kind of you mirror it with your resume, and so that will help the ATS 100%. But you get a lot of flack now with AI and AI because you don't really know what the LLMs are building into their algorithms in terms of how to source these. And so there is a lot of legal stuff going on. There's some stuff out there in the Wall Street Journal. A guy talked about like being discriminated against in his resume. And so there is a lot of fuzziness right now out there with ATSs right now. And so in the HR world, it's like using an ATS, it's a support tool. It's not a decision making tool. So use
Mm.
it to help you make better decisions, but ultimately do not rely on an ATS to filter out the candidates and feed them to the hiring manager. And a recruiter should 100% be in there physically putting eyes on these resumes. It's just like a tool to help them.
Wait, but can you get disqualified without seeing a human eye seeing your resume?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. So there,
Okay.
when you're filtering that through that, if you're not meeting the basic criteria of the job, so in the job description, there is a criteria of level of like you're disqualified if you don't meet those, and if the ATS, which is if it's set up correctly, should filter out those employees that don't meet the basic requirements for the job. That's where it gets a little bit fuzzy, and you'll see this probably in these comments that you're talking about. Is like I do meet all the basic requirements, I do reach all those things, but that is the eyes of the beholder, right? So what they say is what they're looking for. It's not necessarily ever described out there. It's not necessarily always in the job description. A job
Yeah.
description sometimes is just like a copy paste from the old one. We put it in there, and they're going through it on their own, and they're training their ATS to filter them out. And so you don't really know what the basic criteria is, and so that's where it gets blurry. People get frustrated with the applicant tracking systems.
It makes me keep thinking back, like, there's always someone else who's, like, working a different angle to get a job.
Yeah,
Whenever I see a job posting, I'm just like, Is it even worth
yeah,
my time without going through someone?" Or, for example, there's another thing, like I mentioned, I quit my job, but, I'm not opposed to working for someone else, and so there's opportunities in media that I'm actively pursuing. It's not corporate America at all, but they're roles. And so I don't know. It's just like, well, it's media, it's content. That's your differentiator. Even if there's not a job description, I feel like sometimes you could just create a role. And so that's just firing off messages on the correct medium because a lot of these people probably, I mean, their inboxes are probably full. So it's finding the right medium to send
Yeah.
and then tailor it to, hey, this is what you could do for your company. And that's working an angle instead of just applying. I hate the notion of just like cold applying. I
Yeah.
seriously don't think it's
Yeah. In this market,
ever worth anybody's time.
yeah, in this market, it's not. Yeah, you're gonna be struggling. But yeah, I mean, during COVID, like, absolutely, you're if there's like the pot of candidates out there, there's such a small candidate. Like during COVID, there's the bottom of the barrel. So if you're applying for a job, you're most likely gonna at least hear back from a smaller number, maybe not 640. You're not. It's more like 10, maybe 10 jobs you'll hear back from one or two. It's just
Yeah.
the volume of applicants is just different planet now.
Hey, I also wanna tell you this just idea came up. I wanna tell you something. I wanna get, your opinion on this. So, I have this guy on this podcast, his name, Jack Nassif, the content creator. You've probably seen him, Jack's Day in the Life, the guy that always goes he's, like, dancing
Oh
and
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, okay, so he works at a very good company. I don't think I'm not gonna disclose the company. I think there's something there, whatever, but he works at a very good company. He was saying that how he got his job. This guy is like he's like, "Yo, I hustle my way into everything." He's like, "How I actually got my job in my company is after the interview, I asked the person who interviewed me for their address.
Mm,
And so after that, when they gave me their address, I sent them a handwritten note
yeah, yeah,
and delivered it to him after." And he's
yeah.
like, "That alone will set you far, far above anyone else who's applying for that same job." You think that's you think that's overkill? Are there better ways to do that, or what's your opinion?
No, I mean, I do think that is a very like, wow, they're serious, and that's someone that it shows going above and beyond. I think it's a really nice touch, and I've personally gotten those before working in HR, and I see them. I'm like, I think them in a very high, I think very highly of that candidate. But at the end of the day, like we are going to select the best candidate for the job based off of the role that we have available. So I do think it is a variable, and anything that you can paint yourself in a good light, I think can absolutely help you. Snail mail nowadays, I feel like who knows? I think it get lost. Like if you're interviewing remotely and the person's in California and you're in New York, and it could take who knows how long it takes to get there. And so
Yeah.
you don't want to be like, oh, I sent the note, like give it a couple days, and then they 2 days later they hire somebody else, and then they get the note later. It's so there's a little bit of that risk there, and I think the snail mail is a nice touch, but I wouldn't think like, oh, I'm going to get this job because I'm sending out these thank you notes.
Okay. What about personal finance? So something that's going on right now. I saw your posts have accumulated a network of 1 million before the age of 32, I believe.
Mhm.
And do you just want to walk me through that journey and
Yeah.
some of the stuff and decisions you've made?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so kind of my story, like I come from a very small town. Grew up I graduated with under 90 people in high school, very very tiny. Graduated with $38,000 of student loan debt. Just a basic guy coming from a small town. Like, you just wanted to do something different. Wanted to do something better than kind of like my peers and kind of where I grew up. And so with that, I took kind of went out on my own and took it in a rotational program out of college. And with that, as I kind of throughout my career, I started putting money away at a very early age, like right out of college, like a Roth IRA. Like, and it was one of those things I was like, what is a Roth IRA? Like, I don't even know what that is. And just stashing money away early. And as I grew throughout my career and as I started to make more money, I think there's this thing, especially when you start making a little bit of money post college, is you start to the lifestyle inflation starts to creep in. Like, oh, I need a luxury car. I need the penthouse suite apartment. I need all these nice things. And those things can come, but it's like the earlier you put that money away and let it grow, you're gonna be in a much better place overall. And so when you get to your 30s, which I'm 33 years old now, and your friends are gonna start to settle down, they're going to start to get married, they're going to start to buy houses, but you start to see those people overall that are partying away their 20s, and then they get to their 30s or my age. I look around at some of my friends and some people that I grew up with, and it's like they look around and they're lonely, they have nothing because their
Mm,
20s they were just chasing dopamine hits and having a good time. And I'm not one of those people that's like anti YOLO, because I think you should enjoy it and have a good time, but it's like pay yourself first. So with me, that's why I put my money away early, and it just growing and growing and growing. And I'm in a place now where like I don't really have to worry about money the rest of my life because it's put away and it's going to continue to grow, and I'm investing at a high rate. And so that's what I tell anybody. I say, look at back at myself 10 years ago, put money away early. It's just, even if it's just living under your means, to say that you're not making anything in college, just so if you can live on your means, so your student loan debt isn't as high, anything you can do at an early age is going to benefit you in the long term.
Okay, so when you say put money away, are you talking about investing or savings account?
Investing, absolutely put it in the market. You should have at least 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. And your depends on your burn rate, how much you're spending on. You should be every person should be tracking their spending. Highly recommend tracking your spending to see where your money is going. And then first calculate your burn rate. Look at your 3 month burn rate, and then put 3 months of spending away in an emergency fund. So if there's a rainy day, something happens, you can fall back on that, and you're not gonna go into serious crippling debt that's gonna impact your family someday. So that is number one. For second is investing. Once you have that emergency fund covered, invest. S&P 500 index funds, low, like you want to stay away from anything with high fees. I mean, day trading is a losing game. We've all done that. We've all been there. You think you're smarter than, there's so much information out there. All these institutional investors, like they have so much access, so much information. You're not going to outsmart them. You may hit one because you're gambling, and you may hit one just like you go to the casino and you put it on red and it hits red and you get a little bit of money. But index funds are a winning game. Day trading is a losing game. So just put it away in an ETF and an index fund early on.
How would you approach budgeting? Like as a brand new college grad, fresh out, now I'm getting a paycheck. How would you allocate that money?
So the 20%, 20% invest it right off the top. So pay yourself first, put that away. And then once you understand what your burn rate, like what is your rent? So it's usually like the rule is 50, 30, 20
Mm.
is typically the basic finance advice you get out there. But I mean, anywhere you can cut back, so your fixed expenses. So looking at your rent, getting roommates, like that's one thing that I did. I always had roommates, and really important to have that. Where you always negotiate your utilities. I think that's another thing that I feel like people don't do. Is it takes 30 minutes. Call your electricity provider, just say like, "Hey, I can't afford this rate anymore." Shop around. Like you can save hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just shopping around different utility vendors. I think that's a really big one. Pretty low
Wait,
hanging
break
fruit.
that down.
Yeah, so
So
electricity,
like,
so yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
So, like, for example, in the state of Texas, like, there's multiple electricity providers, so you can call around. So when your contract's up, you can call around. You can get multiple quotes depending on what you're using, and so you can get like, hey, in terms of its kilowatt per dollar, what that usage is, and so you can just get a lower kilowatt per dollar rate based on the provider. So you just call different vendors. Same thing with internet
Mm.
Wi-Fi. You can call, there's so many different providers out there. You can get faster speeds for half the rate. You just gotta give them a call and ask what's kind of going on out there.
Okay. 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 So you mentioned that before I cut you off. Was there anything else that you would allocate money towards?
Um, yeah, I mean, emergency fund and investing. Yeah, I mean, there's different types of accounts. I think is really important. So the Roth IRA is a big one. If you're in company's 401k match, definitely get the match. That's free money. That's pretty basic advice out there. But there's a lot of people that you'd be surprised that are not getting their match. If you have more, up the amount on the 401k, and then last but not least, the brokerage account. Brokerage account's more liquid, so if you want to, once you start to save that thing up, you can pull out some cash if you want to make a down payment on a house or whatever it may be. And so I would say focus on those three accounts. Are kind of the big things when you're first starting out.
What habits would you say that you've witnessed from yourself or some of your friends that drain money the fastest?
So I would say like living for the weekends. There's always that like, oh, boozy brunch on the weekends. There's that, oh, it turns into afternoon drinks, turns into a nice dinner with everybody, and you start to see the weekends start to add up pretty quickly. Just going out and having a good time. So I'm not saying like you shouldn't have a good time with your friends, but find ways that you can do that don't cost a bar tab. So like, hey, go out and get access to pickleball, play pickleball. It's active. You're staying fit. You're getting a good sweat in, and it doesn't cost you anything. I mean, maybe you have to have a reservation, get on the court or whatnot, but you can split that by 4 people. So it's just like finding ways that like going for a run outside. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do to save money on the weekends. And then when you get back to the workday, I think another thing I see people spend a ton of money is like the $13 salads on
Mm.
for lunch. It's like, oh, let me DoorDash this. Let me DoorDash this. And then before it's like the $13 salad is now like $20 because with all the fees with DoorDash. And you do that every single day. And then maybe you grab a coffee or something on the way into the office. And it's like you start to track this spending and it starts to add up. And you're like, this is so much money I could have put into the S&P 500 in 10 years from now. I would have a down payment on a house. So it's like it adds up. I mean, you see those people like the my $6 coffee is not going to break the bank, and it's not. But it's like it's the principle and the mindset of like, hey, how do I do things differently to save a couple bucks will add up long term.
I think the thing with the friends is real. I've got a lot of friends. Like I had a guy that texted me yesterday and he's like, "Hey, let's grab dinner on Sunday." I'm like, "Come to church with me."
Yeah,
Like, just come to church with me. Let's hang out.
yeah,
Let's hang out there. I don't wanna drop $100 on
yeah,
a dinner in New York City, and especially with physique too. Like I wanna have a good physique.
yeah,
And it's like, how but it's tough, especially if you wanna maintain relationships and maybe you're a little bit of a people pleaser and you're like, "Oh, I don't wanna make this person mad, so I feel like I have to," but, man, prices are just absurd. It's
yeah,
like it's all about finding better ways and cheaper ways to
yeah.
maintain those relationships.
Yeah, it was like you said, learning how to say no, and yeah, there's some non-negotiables out there that you're gonna wanna do. Yeah, you don't wanna be the guy that's like a hermit and lives in his apartment because I mean, that's one of the great things, for example, living in New York City is to getting out and seeing people and enjoying life as a young person, but at the same time, it's just, like, thinking outside the box on how you can save some money.
Well said. All right, Clark. We covered a lot. This was awesome. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you think would be beneficial for the listener?
Yeah, I think right now, the Gen Z population, is at a really, it's they're starting like a lot of resistance in the Gen Z population and kind of how they're viewing the world. And I see, like, I was just listening to a podcast earlier today, the All In podcast. I don't know if you've ever listened to it. It's really really good. So like the Gen Z population right now is the unemployment rate, like I mentioned earlier, is ticking up. Is entry level jobs coming out of college is something that is the numbers and the data out there. It's scary. So these people that have worked their whole lives to go to college and get degrees and rack up student loan debt, there's no jobs for them. They're being automated by AI. And frankly, and there's this like perception too that a lot of Gen Zs are getting this bad rap out there because they're like this during COVID, they were born into this like anti-hustle culture or this like quiet quitting and is like anti-corporate out there. And it's like that mantra, it's like Gen Z is at a point now, it's like the inflection point, like which fork in the road are you going to go down? And so it's so important the things that we just talked about on this podcast and talking about like how do you get that inner that little thing, that little edge that you can get to gain against the rest of the population is going to be so incredibly important as we head into this because there's not going to be as many jobs out there. Entry level jobs are just not going to exist anymore. It's easier to train an AI model than it is to go hire somebody that you have to give them benefits and so it's a really important part right now. And so that's why, like Anthony, what you're doing with your podcast and helping your audience really create that potential to grow within their careers is so incredibly important. And so just being able to lean into the things that we're talking about to help you differentiate yourself versus the rest of the population, and you're not going to see these things that are going to impact this generation. So that's the last thing I'll kind of end with.
Well said. It was a pleasure, Clark. This is
Yeah,
awesome.
good chatting with you, man.